Every so often, a machine emerges that captures a perfect intersection of engineering ambition, cultural timing, and raw mechanical artistry. A creation that whispers about the end of one era and the reluctant beginning of another. It is not merely about speed or numbers on a spec sheet, but about character. About the pulse of innovation caught in a fleeting moment before regulations, economics, and technology swept the landscape in a new direction. Imagine a sound so sharp and immediate that it defines a generation of riders. Imagine a design that still looks purposeful decades later. Imagine performance that once belonged only to racing grids, suddenly available to the road. This story dives into one of those rare, nearly mythical machines that fused precision with rebellion, craftsmanship with thrill, and scarcity with legend. If you love rare engineering stories and the people who chase perfection, you are in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe for more deep dive histories, and tell us in the comments which machine you want to see next. The 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP arrived at a moment when the motorcycle world was shifting away from the shrill excitement of two-stroke power and toward a more regulated, four-stroke future. Yet this machine refused to compromise. It was Suzuki's final defiant statement to riders who craved that razor-edged precision, a lightweight chassis, and a power band that felt like a direct line to the racetrack. In a decade dominated by technological leaps and tightening emission laws, the RGV250 VJ23SP represented the last flowering of a breed that had defined sport riding through the 1980s and early 1990s. It was not a beginner's bike. It was an enthusiast's instrument, built for those who understood that mastery required finesse and respect. Beneath its sculpted bodywork lived an entirely new 70-degree V-twin engine. Not just a rework of its predecessor but a clean-sheet design focused on sharper response and smoother delivery. The goal was simple: to build a street-legal racer that could translate Grand Prix engineering into everyday exhilaration, even if that everyday meant early mornings, winding roads, and careful throttle control. Suzuki approached the VJ23SP project with an unusual intensity for a segment already fading. Engineers studied the geometry and weight distribution of its factory GP250 bikes, channeling insights into a frame that balanced stiffness and feedback with surgical precision. The aluminum twin-spar chassis was a masterpiece of compact packaging. Combined with the asymmetrical banana swing arm, it offered both style and performance cues straight from the racetrack. Riders described the handling as telepathic, responding instantly to lean angles and body inputs with minimal effort. Suspension components came from the upper echelon of the time. Fully adjustable front forks and a rear shock tuned for aggressive cornering, giving the RGV an agility that felt alive beneath the rider. In this form, the motorcycle was a statement of intent. Suzuki was saying farewell to two-strokes on its own terms. The engine itself was a study in refinement within chaos. Two-strokes are notorious for their binary nature, either asleep or screaming. But the VJ23SP's 70-degree V-twin was smoother, more controlled, and broader in usable range than the 90-degree layout of earlier RGVs. With a close-ratio 6-speed gearbox and a dry clutch straight from Suzuki's racing department, it rewarded precision rather than brute force. At around 70 horsepower in unrestricted trim, it offered a power-to-weight ratio that could embarrass larger displacement four-strokes on the right road. Yet, for all its fury, it remained balanced by a discipline that came only from thoughtful engineering. Fuel delivery through twin Mikuni carbs was sharp. The electronically controlled exhaust valves helped flatten the torque curve, making it both ferocious and manageable. Aesthetically, the VJ23SP stood apart. Its bodywork was more angular, tighter, and cleaner than the earlier models, aligning with Suzuki's mid-90s design philosophy seen in their GP machines. The fairing carried sharper lines that hinted at speed even when stationary. The digital-analog hybrid instrument cluster reflected a transition era. Analog tacho for soul, digital readout for precision. The paint scheme, particularly on the SP version, celebrated Suzuki's racing heritage without excess flash. Every stripe had purpose, every logo placement tied to its lineage. Even the seat unit and tail section were sculpted for aerodynamic efficiency, giving the motorcycle a compact silhouette that still looks aggressive by modern standards. Where the VJ23SP diverged most sharply from its predecessors was exclusivity. Unlike mass-produced sport bikes, this model was built primarily for the Japanese domestic market under strict homologation limits. Only a few thousand units ever rolled out, and even fewer were the SP variant with its dry clutch, lightweight components, and premium finishing touches. That scarcity meant few riders outside Japan ever saw one, let alone rode one. Grey importers in the UK and Australia began sourcing them for enthusiasts willing to navigate the bureaucratic maze of emissions testing and compliance. In the United States, where two-strokes had long been sidelined by regulations, the VJ23SP became legend through magazine spreads and grainy VHS footage of mountain road blasts in Japan. To own one was to possess a piece of forbidden speed, a mechanical passport to a time and place that had already vanished. Despite its brilliance, the RGV250 VJ23SP's timing was its undoing. By 1997, the global motorcycle industry was already aligning around the next generation of four-stroke supersports, machines that could meet emissions targets while offering higher top-end speeds and broader torque. Suzuki itself was preparing to launch the GSX R600, a model that would redefine middleweight performance for decades. In that environment, a hand-built two-stroke masterpiece was a glorious anachronism, an engineering indulgence that could not survive the coming wave of conformity. Yet that very obsolescence became the foundation of its allure. Enthusiasts recognized it as the last genuine expression of a philosophy that valued lightness, immediacy, and connection above all else. Even in maintenance, the VJ23SP demanded the rider's respect. Its high-strung engine required frequent top-end rebuilds and meticulous attention to oil ratios, while its sensitive jetting made it susceptible to temperature and altitude changes. For the casual commuter, it was impractical. For the purist, it was perfection. Every ignition spark carried the weight of a vanishing world, and every kilometer ridden risked wearing out irreplaceable parts. But to those who understood, that was the point. This was not transportation. It was art in motion, performance distilled to its most essential form. In racing circles, privateers viewed the VJ23SP as a near-ready race platform. Its geometry mirrored GP setups, and its engine could be tuned to outrageous levels for track use. Though regulations prevented it from dominating international events, it became a secret weapon in regional races, where its combination of agility and acceleration often humbled newer four-strokes. Many owners treated it like a treasured instrument, maintained not for utility but for ceremony. Each startup a ritual, each ride an act of preservation. Ultimately, the 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP was more than a motorcycle. It was a declaration. A final salute to an era of uncompromised engineering that refused to fade quietly. Its existence proved that even in a market governed by practicality and policy, there remained room for passion. Every element, from its magnesium clutch cover to its distinctive exhaust note, spoke of a company unwilling to forget its racing soul. And though production numbers were small, the ripple effect it left in motorcycle culture would extend far beyond the decade that birthed it. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP sits at a fascinating crossroads in motorcycle development, embodying both the pinnacle and the conclusion of two-stroke performance on the street. By the time it appeared in 1997, Suzuki had already built a legacy of small displacement machines that taught generations of riders how to extract speed through skill rather than brute power. Yet the VJ23SP was not simply the next iteration. It was the point where refinement overtook evolution. Everything about it felt deliberate, from its newly designed 70-degree V-twin to the way its electronics bridged analog craftsmanship and modern precision. Engineers had crafted a machine so advanced that it nearly outpaced its own time. Yet, that sophistication also rendered it unsustainable for mass production. To fully grasp why this model holds such reverence today, one must look not just at its performance numbers but at the ecosystem that created and then extinguished it. Throughout the 1980s and early 1990s, two-strokes ruled the lightweight performance category. Riders loved their simplicity, their responsiveness, and their intoxicating power-to-weight ratio. Suzuki had mastered the formula with the earlier RGV250 variants, which evolved from the RG Gamma lineage that dominated track and street alike. However, by the mid-90s, tightening emissions regulations in Europe and Japan began signaling the end. Manufacturers faced mounting challenges in balancing performance with compliance. The RGV250 VJ23SP was Suzuki's attempt to push two-stroke design as far as it could possibly go within those constraints, and the result was both brilliant and bittersweet. The inclusion of electronically controlled power valves, advanced lubrication systems, and revised combustion chambers demonstrated just how far engineers could stretch old technology. Every refinement was a workaround, every component an act of defiance against obsolescence. Underneath its fairing, the VJ23SP was a laboratory of late-stage two-stroke innovation. Suzuki reworked the cylinder porting for cleaner burning, reduced oil consumption, and enhanced mid-range torque, traits typically alien to the two-stroke experience. The gearbox ratios were closer than ever, allowing riders to stay in the narrow power band with surgical accuracy. The dry clutch, reserved for the SP model, not only reduced rotational mass but delivered the tactile connection that serious riders prized. The exhaust system was tuned to extract every last ounce of energy from combustion, delivering that sharp, metallic wail unique to Suzuki's engineering tone. When the revs built past 8,000 revolutions per minute, the motorcycle transformed from a mild-mannered street machine into a focused racing instrument, surging toward redline with urgency that remains unmatched in this displacement class. Still, performance alone cannot explain the mythology that surrounds the VJ23SP. Its rarity and timing turned it into a symbol. Only a few hundred SP versions were ever produced, making it not just difficult to find but nearly impossible to source in factory original condition. Gray market importers played a critical role in preserving its legacy. Enthusiasts in the United Kingdom, Australia, and select parts of Europe began importing them through specialized brokers, often restoring them with painstaking detail. In the United States, its reputation spread primarily through word of mouth and limited media coverage, as most examples never passed the country's strict emission and registration hurdles. This inaccessibility transformed the motorcycle into something more than a product. It became a quest. Collectors traded information like archaeologists decoding a lost text, each VIN number another artifact in a larger story of mechanical heritage. From a rider's perspective, the Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP required commitment. Its ergonomics were unapologetically aggressive, demanding a forward stance that prioritized control over comfort. The power delivery was non-linear. Below 6,000 revolutions per minute it felt tame, almost docile, but past 8,000 it erupted into a ferocious sprint. Managing that transition demanded discipline and awareness. Those who could synchronize their movements with its temperamental rhythm described it as unlike any four-stroke alternative. Light, direct, and alive in a way no modern fuel-injected engine could replicate. For all its quirks, it was remarkably balanced, forgiving just enough to reward skill but punishing complacency. In an era before sophisticated traction control or ride-by-wire systems, mastery depended entirely on the rider's ability to read the machine. Beyond performance, the RGV250 VJ23SP represented a cultural shift. During its brief production window, global motorcycle culture was turning toward a new kind of efficiency. Four-strokes with larger displacement, more reliability, and broader appeal. But the VJ23SP appealed to purists, those who viewed motorcycles not as appliances but as expressions of individuality. It became a vessel for nostalgia even as it was new, the embodiment of resistance against homogenization. When Suzuki ceased its two-stroke development after this model, it effectively closed a chapter that had defined sport motorcycling for a generation. That closure amplified the VJ23SP's symbolic power. It was no longer just a bike. It was the punctuation mark at the end of a glorious sentence written in blue smoke and high revs. Owning one today is as much an exercise in stewardship as in enjoyment. Parts are scarce, maintenance demands expertise, and authenticity has become paramount. Collectors seek original fairings, factory paint codes, and correct carburetor settings with the fervor of historians protecting rare art. Even minor modifications can affect value dramatically. Some enthusiasts maintain running examples, preserving their performance DNA, while others keep them as static displays of design perfection. Auction prices have reflected this divide, with pristine units fetching figures once reserved for much larger and newer machines. That economic surge underscores how scarcity, history, and emotional connection intertwine in the world of collectible motorcycles. Technical documentation for the VJ23SP reads like an engineer's love letter. Each specification hints at obsession. 249 cubic centimeters, reed valve induction, twin-spar aluminum chassis, and a 141 kilogram dry weight. These numbers sound modest by modern standards, yet their balance creates an experience that transcends specification sheets. The relationship between power, weight, and geometry results in handling so precise that even decades later it remains relevant in discussion of lightweight performance dynamics. The frame's rigidity harmonized perfectly with the suspension tuning, allowing skilled riders to carve through corners with almost telepathic confidence. It is this sensation, this purity of interaction, that modern motorcycles, heavy with electronics, often cannot replicate. The RGV250 VJ23SP achieved something rare. An equilibrium between man and machine that felt instinctive rather than programmed. Its legacy also reaches beyond engineering. The model influenced a generation of designers and collectors, who saw in its form a template for timeless sport bike aesthetics. Compact proportions, symmetry in motion, and a purposeful stance define its silhouette. When discussing the 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP, it becomes clear that its influence extends far beyond its production numbers. By the time it reached the public, the two-stroke world was already fading. Yet Suzuki's creation ensured that the genre would not be forgotten. The VJ23SP was a motorcycle that defied inevitability. It delivered complexity in an age craving simplicity and passion in an era turning toward conformity. The story of its legacy is as much about the people who refused to let it disappear as it is about the engineering itself. Enthusiasts, restorers, and historians have turned the model into a living archive, keeping its sound and spirit alive long after the factory assembly lines went silent. The mechanical design of the Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP was both its greatest strength and its enduring challenge. The 70-degree V-twin layout optimized power delivery, yet it demanded precision maintenance to sustain peak performance. The crankshaft balancing and exhaust resonance required expert tuning, often by owners themselves who learned through trial and dedication. Each rebuild became an act of commitment. Pistons and rings needed careful replacement at intervals that would horrify modern riders accustomed to near-permanent reliability. But this intimacy between rider and machine was central to the ownership experience. Unlike modern motorcycles buffered by electronics, the RGV250 VJ23SP invited its owner to understand every vibration, every hesitation, every subtle change in exhaust note. It was mechanical transparency elevated to an art form. Beyond the garage, its influence resonated through motorsport culture. Although the RGV250 VJ23SP was never a factory race bike, its DNA was steeped in Grand Prix lineage. Many private racers used it as a foundation for competition in domestic series, where lightweight agility mattered more than brute force. The chassis geometry, derived directly from Suzuki's 250 cubic centimeters GP programs, allowed riders to fine-tune suspension and ride height with extraordinary precision. On track, its responsiveness could humble larger machines, especially in technical corners where finesse triumphed over horsepower. That capability reinforced the enduring principle that control, balance, and rider skill could outweigh raw output. For many who grew up idolizing GP legends, the RGV250 VJ23SP offered the closest legal connection to that world, a road-going echo of the professional racing spectacle. As time moved on, the model's scarcity turned ownership into a form of guardianship. Replacement parts dwindled. Sourcing original body panels or electronic components became a global hunt. Online communities formed around shared knowledge, with owners exchanging detailed repair guides, scanned service manuals, and advice on carburetor jetting across climate zones. These networks became a vital preservation ecosystem, ensuring that the few surviving examples could remain operational. The effort mirrored that of vintage aircraft restorers, every running engine a triumph of skill and persistence. Collectors began cataloging frame and engine numbers, tracing provenance to verify authenticity. Auctions in Europe and Asia started to treat the VJ23SP not merely as a used motorcycle but as a cultural artifact, its value driven by condition, originality, and documented history. Part of its enduring fascination lies in how it bridges the tactile world of analog riding with the meticulous craftsmanship of modern engineering. The 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP arrived during the first wave of computer-assisted manufacturing, yet it retained the hand-built precision of an earlier era. Welds on its frame were still applied by skilled technicians. Engine assembly required manual fitting and inspection. This hybrid nature gives it a unique aura. Modern enough to feel refined, old school enough to feel human. Each example carries small variations, the fingerprint of its creation process. That individuality resonates with riders who value authenticity over automation, who see in this motorcycle not mass production but artistry. The performance characteristics of the RGV250 VJ23SP remain the stuff of legend. Its 70 horsepower output, channeled through a weight of barely 141 kilograms, provided an experience that could not be replicated by any four-stroke equivalent. The immediacy of throttle response, the abrupt rise into the power band, and the sensation of near weightlessness in corners created a visceral connection unmatched by later technology. Even decades later, riders who experience it for the first time are often startled by how alive it feels. How every gear change carries consequence, how every throttle input translates directly to movement. It teaches precision through necessity, turning each ride into an exercise in concentration. In that sense, it is less a vehicle and more a training ground for mastery. From a design standpoint, the VJ23SP was a culmination of Suzuki's aesthetic evolution in the 1990s. The fairing's sharp angles and compact proportions anticipated trends that would dominate sport bike design well into the next decade. Its restrained livery, especially in the SP version's factory race colors, communicated purpose without excess. Unlike many contemporaries, it aged gracefully. Even today, it looks lean, cohesive, and ready for motion. This visual discipline has contributed to its collectible status, appealing not only to riders but to design enthusiasts who see it as one of the cleanest expressions of late 20th century performance styling. Culturally, the 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP holds a mirror to the end of mechanical innocence in motorcycling. It was the last major road-going two-stroke sport bike from a Japanese manufacturer, closing a chapter that began with the smoky racers of the 1960s. After its release, legislation and market forces pushed development toward cleaner, quieter, and more efficient machines. While that shift brought undeniable progress, it also created a sense of loss among enthusiasts. The disappearance of two-strokes represented more than a technical evolution. It marked the fading of a sensory experience that defined decades of motorcycling identity. The smell of oil, the rhythmic idle, the crescendo of power in a narrow band. All of it became memory, preserved in the few machines like the RGV250 VJ23SP that survived. Its story continues to evolve as new generations discover it through digital media. High-quality restorations, detailed video reviews, and enthusiast documentaries have introduced younger riders to what made the model so special. For them, it is a window into a time when motorcycles were mechanical instruments of emotion, not just tools of transportation. The fascination crosses age groups. Collectors who once owned one in youth now seek to reclaim it, while newcomers admire its purity from afar. This intergenerational appeal ensures that the RGV250 VJ23SP will never fade entirely into obscurity. Instead, it thrives as a touchstone for authenticity in a digital world increasingly defined by simulation. Ultimately, the 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP represents more than an engineering milestone. It stands as a reminder that the soul of motorcycling cannot be measured solely in performance metrics or emissions compliance. The 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP stands today as a mechanical time capsule, frozen at the peak of what two-stroke engineering could achieve. It tells a story of ambition and finality. A manufacturer pushing technology to its absolute limits before the curtain fell on an entire era. For those who study or collect motorcycles, it symbolizes more than performance figures. It embodies the feeling of being connected to machinery at its most honest. There are faster, cleaner, and more advanced motorcycles, but few that stir the same emotion or carry the same sense of reverence. The RGV250 VJ23SP remains a reminder that innovation is not just about what comes next, but also about honoring what came before. In understanding its impact, one must see the Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP as a bridge between passion and precision. It was designed at a time when regulation and technology were pulling in opposite directions, forcing manufacturers to decide whether to adapt or to perfect what they already knew. Suzuki chose perfection. The result was a motorcycle that operated on the edge of possibility. Light, responsive, demanding, and unforgettable. Every part, from its magnesium components to its race-derived suspension, reflected the meticulous craftsmanship of engineers who knew this would be their final chance to define the breed. That awareness gives the bike a rare sense of purpose. It feels intentional in a way that transcends nostalgia. Ownership of the RGV250 VJ23SP is a relationship built on respect. It rewards precision, punishes carelessness, and teaches patience. For collectors, it has become an investment not only in rarity but in experience. The preservation of a sensory language that no modern engine can replicate. When one starts, the thin metallic pulse of its idle speaks of another time. The sharp crack of its exhaust notes remind the listener that performance once sounded like this. The sound is not just noise but narrative, a story told through combustion and rhythm. To maintain one is to keep that story alive, ensuring that future generations can still understand what made this era extraordinary. The influence of the 1997 Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP extends beyond its physical form. It continues to inspire designers and engineers who seek to recapture the connection between rider and machine. Modern lightweight sport bikes often cite it as a benchmark for handling purity, even if they rely on electronics rather than mechanical feedback. Its ethos lives on in limited production models that value craftsmanship over quantity, feedback over figures. In museums and private collections, it stands proudly among icons, not because it was the fastest or most famous, but because it represented the perfect ending to a story written in precision and passion. Today, the few surviving examples of the VJ23SP circulate among dedicated enthusiasts, their histories carefully recorded, their originality fiercely protected. Each restoration becomes a piece of living history, each ride a tribute to a design philosophy that refused to fade quietly. Whether viewed under a spotlight or leaned into a curve, the bike carries an aura that cannot be reproduced, an authenticity that speaks to a time when engineering was personal. It remains proof that innovation is most powerful when it dares to be emotional. The Suzuki RGV250 VJ23SP will always be remembered not as an obsolete machine, but as a statement of what happens when engineers chase perfection knowing the world is about to move on. It stands as a monument to balance. Power and lightness, artistry and discipline, technology and soul. For those who understand its language, it continues to whisper the same invitation it offered in 1997. Ride with intent, feel everything, and never forget what real connection feels like.